Hi, my name is Bridget Richardson, and I'm the Assistant Director of Ecumenical and Pastoral Initiatives with the Nesty Center for Faith and Culture at University of St. Thomas in Houston. And I'm here with Alim Adatia, a Communication and Publications member with the Aga Khan Council for the Southwestern U.S. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Bridget. It's a pleasure to be on.
Yeah, and I'm just so excited. We've had a few different conversations to prepare for this, and I can't wait for you to share a little bit about, how the Muslim community has had to adjust to coronavirus and some of your high holy days that you've had to make adjustments with as well, and also just different ways that the Aga Khan Council is adjusting. So maybe you could just begin with sharing a little bit about that.
No, absolutely. So maybe I'll give you a little bit of background about myself and the Aga Khan Council and our community.
Yeah.
So I am the Communications and Publications member for the Aga Khan Council, as you mentioned, for the Southwestern United States. And it's the social governance body for the Shia Ismaili Muslim community, which I'm a part of. The Shia Ismaili interpretation of faith is one essentially that believes in a living imam, so a living spiritual guide, who in our case is the Aga Khan. The Aga Khan is the 49th hereditary imam and a direct descendant of Prophet Muhammad. So he acts both as our spiritual guide and our secular guide. And we as a council help with the social governance of the community as exists here in the Southwest region, in this portion of the United States. And so essentially we've been, as you can imagine with a lot of other congregations, trying to figure out how we adjust and really change people's mindset and behavior in the current environment. And one thing I think that's been particularly striking or is a much more difficult hurdle to get over than was, maybe not that it was initially anticipated, was this concept that we've always, I think, as communities, whether it's the Muslim community, whether it's the Christian community or Jewish community or other faiths, I think you constantly hear the value of communal prayer, the idea that we should congregate, we should be together, that prayer as a group is much stronger in person and together than it is in a singular setting. And we've really had to, in the current environment, think about how, when we've emphasized all these benefits to the individual and the community through communal prayer, to ask people that in this environment, encourage them not to get together, and that it's actually in the best interest of the community that you do not congregate, and that you conduct prayer in your homes with your family and those that you're currently with. And I think that mindset, and from a thematic sort of behavioral standpoint, has probably been one of the most significant hurdles to overcome, especially when you think about certain targeted segments of the population for whom going to Jamaat Khana, which is our place of worship, or a church or a temple, is sort of the foundation of their daily routine, whether they're seniors or they're younger individuals who go to religious education on a weekly basis like we have. I think that pivoting and that message has been very difficult to do. One, to create that sense of community, but also to instill that we have a moral obligation to keep isolated, even in a time that, and historically, since we've always said that the prayer is so powerful together.
Yeah, and since you are trying to overcome that, because it's the same thing, in the Catholic Church and other Christian communities that we've been dialoguing with, that communal prayer, I'm so glad you said it in that way. It's so integral to how we experience ourselves as relational human beings. So what initiatives have y'all been working on to kind of help with that? And also, Ramadan is coming up too. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it's been really interesting, and I think there's some actual silver lining to the initiatives that we've instituted, even though it's been difficult. We've done everything from things that are more allow for people to engage in activities like cooking, a stress relief in the form of like Zumba classes and workout classes, to things that are more skills-based. Technology classes, English language learning classes, to kind of take advantage of this time and opportunity to both upskill, but to take on a skill and use it as an opportunity to gain some intellectual prowess or think about other things that you've been wanting to do. But to your point about some of these moments that require a bigger, or traditionally like Navroz, which is the Persian New Year, it's a new year that we celebrate as well, or Ramadan, which is coming, Ramzan. There is this traditional behavior about getting together with family and friends. And I think it's like, as you alluded to, in those moments, that it's particularly important that we find a way to create that sense of community. So for the first time during Navroz, we actually had a nationwide telecast. So there was a program that was created by our National Communications and Publications Board. It was replicated across the globe by different countries as well within the Ismaili community. And it allowed people to sort of dial in virtually, but to see the same thing at the same time and sort of feel this connectedness. And so we are thinking about these things in a way that I think is really interesting. One thing I think, as I alluded to before, some of these silver linings is that it gives the opportunity for our local Jamaat, and Jamaat is how we refer to our congregation, maybe in the Houston area, to now connect with other regions. You know, you can join very easily a Zoom call about a talent competition or some event that's taking place, or a lecture or conversation about something similar to this one in the Northeast region, even though you're in the Southwest. Whereas physically, that's a barrier that wouldn't have been able to be overcome. So I think that level of connectedness across borders, across states, and globally is one of the silver linings. I think the other thing, in a much more broader and thematic approach that probably a lot of faith communities are struggling with, but it's something that's really important to point out, is that, and I'm kind of taking from a speech that the Aga Khan made in South Africa in the mid-90s, he used a quote by T.S. Eliot that I think is really interesting. And I'm paraphrasing, but I believe it's something along the lines of, you know, what wisdom have we lost in knowledge, and what knowledge have we lost in information? And it was in the context of a speech where he talked about the sharing of data and information and how it's readily available and it travels faster than it ever has before. But is it really allowing us to better understand the people around us? And I think what's interesting in the current environment, especially in the faith context, is we're not worried about connectivity for the sake of connectivity. We're trying to use digital platforms and channels and connectivity to really enhance greater connection. And I think that's something that, until we've all been isolated and we need something that mimics that physical connection, it may be allowing us to sort of reframe and rethink about how we use our digital platforms and other things to really create greater connection amongst people, as opposed to maybe just free-flowing information and echo chambers and other things that sort of greater connectivity has been used for historically. So that, I think, is a framing that is really interesting, that Aga Khan had spoken about so many years ago, but I think is really relevant in so many different contexts.
Yeah, that's really interesting to fit that together with the connectivity, because you and I have talked about how the Islamic faith believes that physical and spiritual life are inextricable.
That's
So
correct.
how do you connect that with what's going on, and also that connectedness that people are seeking, that relationality that people are seeking right now?
Yeah, you know, it's something that is constantly mentioned by the Aga Khan, that both our spiritual and material life, as a fundamental tenet of Islam, are inextricably connected. And I think what that means is that faith doesn't stop when you leave the Jamaat Khana or the church. It must exist in your daily life. It's sort of that it's sort of that concept of faith in action that we've talked about. And I know you have a symposium coming up, so I'll plug that for you as well. Was it Love in Action, right? And so it's this idea that we have to, in our daily lives, they're completely intertwined with our spiritual lives. And I think a good example of that at a higher level, before I get into the current environment, is the Aga Khan Development Network, which I think is the real manifestation of faith, spirituality being interconnected with our material or daily lives. And the Aga Khan Development Network is essentially a series of different development networks in the areas of economic, social, and cultural that really are aimed at improving the quality of life of the greater community and everyone around us. So by no way or means is it only there to benefit our community, the Ismaili community, but it's meant to benefit the community at large. It includes hospitals, academies or education facilities. It includes pieces of key infrastructure that are needed in certain countries around the world. Those things that are resources that can be expended from a cultural, economic, or social standpoint that can benefit those communities. And I think it's a really good example of faith in action, because it's sort of us saying that we have to do that, that if we are not improving the quality of lives for those around us, then what are we really doing, and what's the purpose of our faith? So I think in today's context, and I'll finally get to what you asked me about, I think it's really nice to see how people are stepping up. Even in a time where I think so many of their businesses and their personal lives are impacted, whether it's homeschooling or lessened income in their business, they see the importance of really making it better for those around them, and really kind of helping those that are on the front lines. We've had, just in our community, off the top of my head, I can think of individuals who have dry cleaners who have basically given free dry cleaning to first responders. There's a gentleman I know who is giving lunches to first responders for free who were stopping by his store. Like us and many other communities that you're probably aware of, there are individuals that are starting to make masks that could then be distributed to people on the front lines. And then within the communities, you have so many individuals that either are first responders, healthcare providers, who are leaving their families on a daily basis to be out there and help all of us. But also internally, a lot of this programming that we're doing, whether it's cooking classes or technology classes, they take time, energy, and effort to put together. And a lot of volunteers that are really expending a lot of their time in an effort to do this. The big, bold idea, which is another silver lining, I think, is that we're really pushing the envelope of how to create this level of greater connection that has come out recently, is we're going to have Ismaili TV, which will be launched soon. And so that's an opportunity for us to engage the global Jamaat, our congregation, in a way that we've never been able to do before, and highlight content from around the world and see that. So I think those are just a few of the ways that we've sort of been trying to cope with the current environment, and really bridge that gap and show that our faith individually or as a community is inextricably connected, our spiritual life, with the material and day-to-day life that we live.
Yeah, and I had the privilege of visiting the Ismaili Jamaat Khana Center in Sugar Land, and it's incredible how you bring those two things together, how the physical space so much mirrors what you want people to experience spiritually. And so, but y'all are expanding, right? Y'all are going to be coming to this side of town, so maybe you want to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to be your neighbor pretty soon, Bridget. So I think, yeah, we are, there will be an Ismaili Center, Houston, which will be the first Ismaili Center in America. There are 7 other Ismaili centers worldwide. And essentially, off the top of my head, there's Toronto and Vancouver. There are 2 in Canada. There's London, England. There's Lisbon. There's Dubai. And there is also one in Dushanbe in Tajikistan. And so this will be the first one in the United States. We're extremely happy to be able to have it here in Houston, and we know it's a real blessing for us. But it definitely will not be ours, in the sense that it will be shared with our Jamaat, our congregation across the United States. And Ismaili centers are typically ambassadorial buildings that are architecturally significant. They try and balance, as you mentioned, the sort of spiritual and worldly, the maintenance of our culture and traditions, but also adapting to the worldly life around us and the environment around us. And I'm particularly excited about this one because, as you're well aware of, the sort of neighborhood that we're in, it's such an interesting mix of diverse representation of faith communities. It's in the heart and right next to sort of the museum district, and this sort of bustling area of a really great mix of demographics and individuals that I think really highlight a lot of the things that the Ismaili Center is about. So in addition to being a place for sort of spiritual contemplation, a place for social and cultural interaction, it also serves as an ambassadorial hub for us to put out programming related to the Ismaili faith, but things we believe in, like pluralism, and improving the quality of life of those around us, but also be a place that takes those aspects and highlights aspects of modern life that we feel are as important as well. So hopefully in the coming years, it'll be completed, and it'll have an exterior space, like a garden space, a significant outdoor space, alongside both the Jamaat Khana, which is our place of worship, but another portion that will be open to the community at large. So I'm really looking forward to that, and would love to have you when it opens.
Yes, I will be there. I'm so excited, and thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. And just to tie it all together, how would you kind of help people continue to find hope during this time of the physical disconnectedness, but how can they reach within to that spiritual longing that we all feel?
Yeah, I think I'm really surprised at some of the things that have happened, even in a time that we've been asked to pivot. You've seen our individuals that guide our congregation, sort of our lay ministers, connecting via video with members of their congregation. People who are seniors that probably never in their wildest dreams imagined that they would be, having a connection through a Zoom meeting with people within their congregation. But we've had to also put our religious education and early childhood development classes online. But I think the silver lining and the hope in all of that is that we've actually seen, in some instances, more people join than physically come, and so maybe there's an opportunity here. We had a musical concert online the other day, and we had approximately, I think it was 3,100 potential people that joined. And so within all of this, I think the spirit, the human spirit, and what we're capable of doing and what we're able to get through, and people's willingness to really step up for each other, hopefully is something that even through these virtual channels and this blue light gets felt by everyone. So I'm really hopeful. And I think that using prayer particularly as a way to center yourself, and taking advantage of programming in this time to really think about what they want out of life and who they are, I think it's just a great opportunity for reflection, I would say, and to maybe use that as the bedrock to ensuring your health, mental and physical well-being as we move forward.
Well, that's wonderful. And if people want to connect with the programming that you're offering, how would they do that?
Yeah, the website is the.ismaili. It's the.ismaili. And if you go on that website, it's sort of our one-stop shop for what is happening within our global Jamaat, our congregation. And there's also the different social media handles listed at the bottom there, which can provide you some insight as well.
Great. Well, I'll make sure to include that in the description too, so that people have that.
Thank you, Bridget. That would be fantastic.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Alim, for joining me this morning. It's always been a joy to connect with you, but for you to share your faith in this way is just really special, and to also educate our community as well on how, your community is coping, but the really amazing things you're doing to continue the work.
Well, I really appreciate it. And it's been a pleasure. And thanks for allowing me to share a little bit about our community, but my own opinions as well. So thank you, Bridget.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.